I'm now speaking with Mayor Sally Hutton of Richmond, Indiana. Mayor, I appreciate your meeting with me on such a short notice here.
Not a problem.
Okay, and what I want to do is talk to you a little bit about the city of Richmond and about your being mayor here and leading the city here, because anymore political leaders have to be educators, because a lot of the things that you do aren't being taught anymore
Right.
in school. And but I want to kind of stay focused in the history area, and especially the Underground Railroad. Why was this city here significant in the Underground Railroad?
Well, we're a Quaker town originally, and we were founded by Quakers. They have Earlham College, and they were very instrumental in the Levi Coffin house up in Fountain City. It was Newport at the time, but we worked to help a lot with the Underground Railroad. I think in 20 years' time we put like 1,000 slaves through the system and on up into Canada, which was very helpful. And some of them came back down, but it was safer for them in Canada than it was any place in the United States.
Now, do you have any idea where the slaves came from, to come through Richmond, where they were coming from?
There were 5 different areas. The majority of people came up from Cincinnati, and they came into Richmond, and they went on up past Chicago and around the lake into Michigan. So,
All right, the reason I asked that question is, I think, let me see, the Levi Coffin House was founded 1820s.
1820.
In 1820, and at that point in time, a lot of transition was going on
Yes.
in Indiana.
We had a lot of KKK, and we had to. Well, they both didn't get along, but we had to make sure that the slaves were safe so they could get on through past the KKK.
Now, during that time period, or the history of the KKK, I noticed that this city is somehow healed from that history.
We have healed. We still have some racism, but we don't have as much. One of the first thing when I became mayor 12 years ago was all the boards. It's like 150 people have to be appointed to the boards. We had a white old men's society that was on the boards. They sat on all the boards, and I made it diversified. I made sure that we had people of color, people of disability, and women to go along and on all the boards, and that has worked so far. But I had a hard time finding African Americans that wanted to step forward and be on the boards. And finally, I had to go to a couple of dinners and say, "Hey, folks, you got to help me." So, and we did, and we were able to get the people, and they've been our best board members.
But that's also a part of the history too, where African Americans wouldn't step forward because of what would happen when you did step forward.
That's right, exactly right. And it took us many, many years to get over that and come through it, and now we're more diversified and we're better off because of it. And we believe in education, and part of that education is making sure that everybody's included into. We're working on a stellar grant that the city of Richmond received a couple of years ago, and one of the things is inclusion, making everybody a part of have a seat at the table, so that they can help make the decisions for our growth and prosper to our city. So, and we do.
But that's in part one of the reasons why I wanted to come here, because we're in the state of Indiana, and Indiana right now still has egg on its face, and we're trying to come from under that. But a lot of effort has been on trying to create a new identity of Indiana. And anytime you bring in a PR firm or consult people like that, those types of people aren't necessarily concerned with the truth of matters.
Right, or how you got to that point.
And it seems like there are role model examples of how you do go about correcting the bad images of the past, but we're not doing that as a state. Why is it that Indiana does not reference its history in terms of the bad things that have happened in its history, in order to show how we're smart enough to go forward?
That I can't give you an answer to, but I do know that in all the books and magazine articles that you read, they talk about you have to know your history as to how you got to the point of where you are before you can go forward. And you have to get everybody on the same boat and understand, to educate the people of how we got here to where we go. The city of Richmond used to be the Rose City, we had rose festival parades and all of this, but we had like, I forget how many hundreds of acres of roses grown under glass in the city of Richmond, but that's gone. And we've lost our auto manufacturing too. So we've had to, and we've never rebranded ourselves, but we keep looking, but we don't have to hire a firm. You talk to the people, you listen to the people, and you get your information from them, and that's how you make your big moves.
But still, with Richmond's or this area's underground railroad history, you take that by itself, and then you go back to the Indiana Constitution, and I believe it was 1851 when, for blacks to even travel through the state, they had to have a bond. And I found out that the bond was up to like $500, and that money was being used to send the blacks back to Africa. But what I'm saying is that had to be in retaliation.
Because they were trying to get somewhere in their lives. Was it 1994, 1996 when the blacks got the right, civil rights came aboard? And we've done things since then, but we haven't taken them far enough, and that's why I'm saying that you have to educate your population in your community. We can't depend on the state and the federal government to do it anymore. We have to do it ourselves.
But when you talk about civil rights, I read recently that, let's say, well, using the plight of blacks anyway, that from 1865 to now, the plight of blacks has not changed. In 1865, blacks had a collective half of 1% of the nation's wealth,
Right.
and today it's the same. It's the same thing.
I don't think there's that many that have the percentage anymore. I think the percentage. You'll read now that there's more blacks living in poverty, more young black adults in jail and prisons. We're going backwards instead of forward. So as a whole, we have to do more. But if each community does their own little thing, it will help the cause. So.
But back here in Indiana, over here you have this going on. On the other side of the state, Lafayette, what have you, you have Tecumseh's history, and what he was doing here, and how he would never sign a treaty. Different cities across the state have very interesting histories that once you look at those in a collective manner, you get a whole different understanding of what was going on here in Indiana, and it's that type of a thing that I would think that once you understand what happened here,
It's education.
education, and it's a groundwork so we can move forward.
You just came from Fountain City with the Levi Coffin House, and the state has just put in $3 million to build a new center there. It'll be a living center where we'll show a lot of the history that happened in Wayne County and all of the eastern part of Indiana. But it's the first time that Indiana's done that. And Cincinnati's built the Civil Rights Museum, and we're so far behind, and we have so much history here from Fountain City and Richmond with the Quakers and helping everybody move forward, that it was time that we show it and educate people of how it was done, because they'll get a real shocker, an eye-opener when they see how it really was back when and how it is now. So.
All right, now, was that your initiative, or how did it happen?
No, that was through tourism. Tourism.
No, I mean, in terms of getting the city people to focus on the need to bring in some money to do that, to tell that larger story.
We helped with the grant, but the tourism truly, and Fountain City truly did most of the work. But we certainly sent letters of help and how we supported the venture and everything, and because we know the importance of it is to educate the people, not just here in the city of Richmond and in Wayne County, but all throughout this country, the visitors that stop by. What we did back in the 1800s towards slavery, and how we were trying to help people out of poverty at that time.
Because the reason that point is so important to me is I have to use Fort Wayne as my reference point, and some of the struggles that we're going through there, and it just seems as though we're not really. Fort Wayne has such a strong history because it pulled Indians together from this whole region, from the whole Great Lakes
Right.
area, to come there and fight. And when I started adding up the numbers, I saw that Fort Wayne, with the Indians that fought under Little Turtle, killed more Americans, or the most Americans were killed coming through here. And then after they got through these battles here, it wasn't exactly a cakewalk, but the fighting ability of these Indians around here is not even. I mean, the high schools, fight like warriors or fight, that type of thing, but they don't really take seriously how strong these natives were,
Right.
and the books are still talking about savages
That's true.
and things like that, and my whole point in totally referencing the past is when you go to the U.S. Constitution or the Indiana Constitution. Now, I want you to correct me, where I'm wrong here. That if those documents show that those people, whoever they were less thans, or we could treat them marginally, that has to somehow translate into the mindsets of the regular people in terms of
Right.
how they would treat people.
Right. I agree.
And then if you come forward with programs today showing how to erase racism and prejudices through sociology, that doesn't come close to fixing the historic reasons why those opinions were, how they took hold in a person's mind.
When you look back and you talk, most of the people settled by rivers or streams because of the water. They had very few tools. They made most of them. They were very creative on how they lived. They were living in poverty but didn't know it. But they had good lives, and we were trying to make them better. But we went too far. We took the initiative away from people on to do things for themselves and to, work hard and sleep hard, play hard, do everything hard, but to progress along the way, and we don't do that anymore. So we do need to rethink a lot of our different programs and things because they're not helping people.
Yeah, and now, strangely enough, I'm from Indiana, and I was highly indoctrinated, and a marketing major from Indiana State at the time when Reagan came into office. And I was full of individual initiative, motivated by profit, would lead to a healthier national economy, and that we should all become salesmen and entrepreneurs.
It does work.
Not quite, but it sounded good.
Yeah.
And it was definitely influencing, and there's a need for salesmen, but what I'm saying is, anymore in today's society, we're told to go look for a job or how to prepare ourselves, for a good wage, and not to find some type of a need that we can fix ourselves through our own initiative and benefit thusly.
One thing that we're finding out in Richmond, everybody says, "What do you move to Richmond for? Why do you come to Richmond? There's no jobs here, blah, blah, blah." People nowadays don't come for the jobs, they come for a place to live. They come for a recreational activity for their family. Then they find the job, or they create a job. But they're doing everything backwards now, but they're the ones surviving and we're not. So maybe we need to go back to that.
Well, but our city, again, is marketing toward, that is exactly what they're marketing towards, is to attract that. And they don't really, they feel that the real history divides people, and what they're doing is putting a Band-Aid over a cancer.
I agree with them to a certain point. You can't relive history, but you can remake history, and you should know why your history tells you how you got here, and then you go from there. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Because a lot of people just say, "Oh, well, we can't do that," or "We've tried that," or "We've done this." Or, no, let's do it again and see what's different this time.
Because every problem had a beginning point,
Right.
and when you go back to that beginning point of that problem, all roads lead to the Indiana Constitution and U.S.
Right.
Constitution in terms of creating a mindset. And once you show that, in my opinion, that you can just like you hear people say, we want to take our country back, Trump. We want to take our country back.
Or we want our kids to have a better life than we had. Well, you know what? We had a good life.
But to take our country back, that makes no sense.
Who wants it?
Well, not just that, but it wasn't his country.
Right, that's true.
I mean, the country that he's referring to as his was taken from others, by force. You know, what I'm driving at is does that concept make sense? Where by going to different cities and speaking with mayors, for an example, about their city and the city over here and the city over here, and how that city pulled itself up, and then taking a step back and looking at it in a collective way, there's got to be some kind of merit in that, so that we would have a more of a natural solution as opposed to Madison Avenue.
We've come too far these days with social media, and everybody knows everybody's business. And we need to go back to building the personal relationships and finding out for sure how the person got to where they are, or how their grandparents got to where they were, and what they did with it. Because now we assume that everything on social media is true, and it's not.
Oh.
And if people would really get to know the people, build the relationships, I tell candidates all the time, I said, you can have all the social media you want, but if you don't go knocking on doors and talking to the people, you're not going to get anywhere. You're going to explain what you stand for and where you're going to go, not supposedly what you can do or will do. And they take it for what it is. So, well, some of them do it, some of them don't. But I do think social media has caused a lot of trouble instead of truly educate people.
But again, with the state of Indiana and seeming to, there's no coordinated force to tell the truth about our history, or that I know that's my opinion, because everybody, truth about what you can get, you can really break that down. But what I'm getting at is there another way to do this other than using the political leaders themselves? Because
I think
again,
you have to use education in the schools.
but they're not teaching this.
They've taken away, fourth grade, Indiana history.
Yes.
And I mean, it's crazy. Why don't you want to learn Indiana history? Why don't you want to learn how we got to where we are and why we do things the way we do and all this silly stuff? Some people to this day do not understand city government. They think you just can spend whatever money you want wherever you want. You have all these slush funds. Well, no, the state tells you we have 4,000 different accounts, and we're only allowed to spend them on this and that and whatever, but we can't spend them on anything else. They just have to sit there if we don't spend the money. Or they take the money back. Like lately, they've just taken the money back. So yes, the people don't pay taxes, but they go by assessment. So they're really paying more than they used to, except the rich got a break on their houses. But we're getting less money because of assessment. And because nobody knows how to do assessment, it's the city's fault. Who provides all the services to the citizens? And it's not true. It's simply not true. But they're not taking the time to find that out. And it's not just happening here; it's happening everywhere.
And also universities, when they have to trim back their budget, social studies, history is gone.
Yeah. They have no PE in the classes, in grade school classes anymore. Then they talk about the kids being fat and overweight and they can't eat the right foods, and it's just crazy.
My whole point is, at some point, the people who
We gotta stand up.
But they got to be led by the people who are in office,
Right.
Because by and large.
But I'm not sure they need to be led. What we're finding out in Richmond is the common citizen, the everyday citizen, is taking it upon themselves to do projects that they think need to be done. They're not waiting on city government because you have to go through this, you have to go through the state, you have to go through the feds. You can have 6 months to a year on the drawing board, where these citizens can do it themselves for not waiting any of that time. And they raise their own funds to get it done. And a lot of it doesn't take money, it just takes time and effort and people helping each other. And that's what the citizens of Richmond are doing.
How have you maintained such a positive outlook on people?
We were just talking about this the other day. Is what's happened to Positively Richmond? Because I hear some negative. But the negativity comes on the blogs and the forums, so we just don't pay any attention to them. We allow the citizens, I meet with the board once a month. It's a CEB board, and we bounce things back and forth, and they go off and do things. We have a wonderful leadership program, and one of the things for them to graduate is to take a project. And most of them follow through. They just don't do the project one time. They do it for years and years to come. And it's all self-supporting. They find their own way to get things done, and they do it. Beautification, picking up the parks, simple little things, but things that make a big impact and plus for the city.
You know, if you had a chance to just sit back and just write the answer to how you should use history or what you should learn from the past in order to make things better in the future. I mean, people know the little sayings and everything, but they don't know that there's really truth behind the implementation of that theory.
I think you hit the nail on the head when you said that, especially with black people, they were afraid to be on the boards because they always got in trouble. I think the citizens of Richmond were afraid to come forth because people would make fun of them or they didn't dress appropriately or whatever. That's all off the table now. They do what they want when they want. And we have a good community, and people are working together to get things done.
Well, it sounds like you've done a good job here, so why are you leaving?
162 days. Because I've done it for 12 years, and it's some time for younger people to come in.
All right, now
I'll still be around,
but you've done such a good job here. I've been watching the broader picture here in Indiana, and I haven't seen your name pop up for governor.
Nope, you're not going to either. I just want to be a grandma. You know, I'm pretty old, and I need to take some time off. So.
You know, why did you enter this sector?
My originally I wasn't going to. I was running campaigns, and the girl on council had moved, and I goes, "Oh, how are we going to replace her?" Well, my uncle and my dad decided that I would take the job, and I go, "Oh no!" You know. Well, I took it for 2 years. I was appointed, and then I ran and was never beaten. Then my dad had been sick, and finally he wasn't with us anymore, and I just decided that the opportunity to be a mayor, so I did, and 12 years later I was the first one elected to a third term, so I guess that's good, but it's over with.
So here's my last question then. You know, what do you say to young people anymore who read the numbers, who see that you almost have to be a millionaire to run for any office anymore? You know,
that, and I think that's very sad.
But what do you say to people who no longer believe that if you have a good idea that you should still run?
I tell people to run, and they do, but I tell people to work. You need to be out in the community, and people need to know you. Build those relationships so that they know who they're voting for.
Well, Mayor, I really appreciate this half hour here to give us some kind of insights as to how you came through these things, and I do think that people from other parts of Indiana will benefit from hearing our discussion, because you don't see...
They should come see us. They'd like it here.
Well, I see a lot of people from Fort Wayne who I would love to send here.
Yeah, well, I've got some from Richmond you can take back.
So, again, thank you very much for speaking with us. Thank you.
No problem.
And thank you for watching.